Today, gentlemen, we'll be looking at solvency. Now, solvency is the extent to which the business can meet its financial commitments in the longer term. It is very different to liquidity in the sense that liquidity looks at the short term. Solvency is the longer term. Now, with solvency, it is measured using what we call the gearing or the leverage ratio. Now, in the HSC, you'll see either of those two words, leverage or gearing. They're interchangeable. They mean the same thing. The basic question a manager of a business must ask themselves is, can our business pay its loan repayments? Can we pay off that mortgage that we've borrowed? Can we pay off that long-term loan that we've borrowed? That is the aim of the gearing ratio, is to tell us whether the business can or cannot do that. Now, a potential investor and creditors are interested in this gearing ratio. They want to know if they're going to get paid or if they're going to get a good return on their investment. Now, to calculate your solvency ratio, it's quite simple, really. You look at your total liabilities and your owner's equity, and you divide the two together. Now, you're going to get those figures from your balance sheet. Okay, so you total up your liabilities and you divide it by your owner's equity. Now, once you've calculated your solvency ratio, it is expressed as a ratio. So don't put it as a percentage. Okay. Now, it's one thing to calculate it. It's another thing to interpret it. So if we ever look down here, gentlemen, the higher the ratio, the less solvent the business is. In other words, the higher the ratio, the more risk, because it means you're borrowing a lot more money. Whereas if the lower the ratio, the higher the solvency. It means there's less risk. In other words, the business is using more of its owner's equity than it is from outside lenders, which is what your liabilities are. Now, our industry standard is basically 0.5 to 1. In other words, for every 50 cents that the business borrows, they should have $1 in owner's equity. This will ensure that they can actually cover the costs of their debt and still have some funds to cover other expenses that may arise. Now, in the HSC exam, they will ask you to calculate, and then they'll also ask you to interpret. Now, generally, that could be a 4-mark question. You'll get 2 for the calculation and probably 2 for your interpretation. Okay, now your interpretation basically means you go back to the statement, you go back to your actual ratio that you've calculated and you compare it to your industry standard. Now in class, gentlemen, we will cover some examples on how to do that, and I'll show you some past HSC questions that involve you both calculating and interpreting your solvency ratio.